work on travel literature, so it won't be much language, German travel literature. German, yes. Anyway, don't worry about that. I come from Aberdeen. Aberdeen, famous for its sandwich-snatching seagulls and being the hometown of Michael Gove. The only other man I know who combined education and comedy with every announcement. Anyway, I got from Aberdeen. Aberdeen is very beautiful. It looks particularly good if you look and turn your back on it. That's not my joke. I stole that. Not off YouTube, actually, but from a German writer. The writer was not Goethe, nor was it Kafka, nor was it Hitler. It was actually Heinrich Heine. So there you go. You've learned one fact today. That's a good start. Anyway, I work on travel literature. And I first learned about that at Oxford, a city famous for its rat syphilis and its car factories. Rat syphilis was the founding member of the Bullingdon Club. Yes, I was at this lecture on travel literature. Also there was the future former stand-up comedian, TV personality Stuart Lee, the future British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and also George Osborne should have been there, but he was on holiday on Peter Mandelson's boat. Unfortunately, it wasn't Robert Maxwell's boat. That's a joke from 19-something. Okay, so this lecture on travel literature, I learned that travel writing, like stand-up comedy, is like the construction of a persona, about an identity whereby the travel writer looks to pretend he's different and better from all the other tourists that he travels with. Although he does the same things, his observational abilities are much better than everyone else's. He's of a higher standard of person. It's a bit like us today, here in this particular arena. We're here to be educated, edified. We'll walk out of the room much better people than when we walked in, or at least that's the idea. So, that's the principle. That was the principle which I understood. An example would be, for example, Goethe. Goethe, you may have heard of Goethe, it doesn't matter at this stage if you have or you haven't. He was famous for his hat, as you can see on this particular image, but also for his stand-up sketch comedy, Faust of Fun, which he wrote with his comic sidekick Richard Schiller in the early 90s, in the 1790s. Goethe was bored of all the political satire comedy he had to write at the Weimar court, and he's headed to Italy in 1786. And he was in search of true, authentic Italy. But when we read his journal, what we discover is that what he does is he says, all these other travellers beside me, these other Germans, they really don't appreciate the Renaissance art, they don't appreciate the antiquity, not like what I do. I am very special. But then you read his diary a bit closer, and you discover that actually what he did all the time was he hung out with Germans, he had sex, he drank to excess, he made fun of the locals, you know, the lazy, mucky Italians, or so Goethe said, sorry. And in the end, he seems to do everything that we do when we're on holiday. So where's it to myself? So, that was Goethe. Goethe travelled by stagecoach. Not, as you can imagine, the bus company, but actually a true comedy vehicle. Heine, by contrast, travelled on foot because he was a true romantic. He believed in getting as close to nature as possible. Heine actually was also around at the same time the trains came in. Heine tells us of the trains. Trains improve our family lives. They distance us from our relatives. Okay, the rhyme is rubbish, but the sentiment's right. Anyone who has sat on a lonely platform in Inverness or Elgin, 11:47 at night, dying to get back to the great city where the stand-up celebrity comedians perform on their comedy package tours, as run by the Thomas Cook of stand-up comedy, Michael McIntyre. You know, we desire to escape. But the trains change travel. They change travel forever. Because you could no longer get off the beaten path. Wherever you went, there were trains. There was no nature. You couldn't wander lonely as a clown. And trains also brought about the end of German Romanticism. They set the signs and the lines for engineers, technicians to come in and introduce scientific positivism. Literature was dead. And it also, of course, led to the two wars of German expansionism, the second one led by Hitler, a man famous for his love of sausage and his hatred of Alsatians. Hitler, it has to be said, I don't want to mention him. I don't want to mention the war. I turned my back on the past and threw it away. I didn't start it, after all. Don't mention it ever again. So, Heinrich Böll. Heinrich Böll, in 1957, the Germans still loved nature, they still loved to travel. So off they went, but they weren't welcome in all those places they used to go to. But Ireland had remained neutral. So Heinrich Böll, not to be confused with Heinrich Heine or Heinrich Himmler or Henry VIII, any of those other famous people. Böll went to Ireland, search for the real Ireland. You know, an Ireland with no economic miracle, no car factories, no Germans, until he got there, of course. And so off he went to Ireland, and you can still buy his journal today. It has an authentic copy of a pint of Guinness on the cover, just so you know what Ireland's about. In case you thought Ireland might be the fact that you die from not being able to get an abortion, there's no jobs, mass emigration, Father Ted, all those great things that he has, indeed. So, Böll goes off to Ireland. His journal, however, is missing one particular anecdote. It's when he met the future sit-down comedian Dave Allen in a pub. Now, they discovered they had a similar distrust of the Catholic Church, a similar love of whiskey and cigarettes, which I'm obviously not allowed to indulge in here, and a similar penchant for travel. Böll had toured Soviet Russia with the Wehrmacht in the 1940s, and Allen had gone on. He'd wandered lonely as a diesel engine through the mountains of County Wicklow during the comedy wars of the 1940s, which were fought in Ireland over the Catholic Church's attempt to ban the use of condoms in stand-up comedy routines. It has to be said that Allen finally ended up in exile, travelling with Terry Wogan to the BBC. And exile is, of course, a much more serious version of travel than the one I've been playing around with today. Exile is precisely those people who are forced by political circumstances to move elsewhere, who are not allowed to stay in their home. And then they arrive somewhere else and there's a bus driving around saying, please go home, you sure you should be here? Anyway, this journey was supposed to be 8 minutes long. It seems to be just coming in on time, so it's reached its destination, if not its end. So, whoever he may be, maybe Goethe, maybe Stuart Lee, maybe Pope Banquet, whoever your God is, may your God go with you when you travel. Thank you very much.